You live in a world obsessed with order. Systems, regulations, plans, everything around you is designed to create predictability, control, and efficiency. Governments want to regulate markets. Companies want to control outcomes. Algorithms want to predict your behavior before you even make a choice. But what if this hunger for order is the very thing that kills freedom? What if real liberty, creativity, and progress come not from control, but from the very chaos we try to eliminate? This was the radical insight of Friedrich August von Hayek, a thinker who dared to defend disorder as the true engine of freedom. Hayek saw what many others didn't, that every attempt to centrally control society, no matter how noble it sounds, leads inevitably to the destruction of liberty. To him, the most dangerous people weren't the tyrants with guns, but the planners with good intentions, the ones who believed they could design the world better than people living in it. He warned that once a society starts believing that experts can manage every outcome, it slides toward a soft tyranny where freedom dies quietly, without anyone noticing. Hayek's ideas were born in the shadow of totalitarianism. He lived through the rise of Nazi Germany, saw socialism sweep across Europe, and watched the world fall in love with economic planning. To many, central planning promised fairness, equality, and stability. But to Hayek, it was a seductive illusion. He argued that no central authority could ever know enough to make the right decisions for millions of people. The knowledge of how the world works, the details of preferences, skills, needs, and innovations, is scattered among individuals. It lives in the minds of ordinary people, not in the offices of bureaucrats. In his most famous work, The Road to Serfdom, Hayek delivered a warning that still echoes today. When a society hands over its decisions to planners, it doesn't move toward utopia, it moves toward tyranny. The road to hell, he said, is paved with good intentions and 5-year plans. What begins as a promise to organize the economy for the people often ends with the state organizing the people for the economy. It's not because the planners are evil, it's because they try to do something impossible. Imagine a vast web of human interaction. Every choice you make about what to buy, where to work, what to study, or even what to believe creates a ripple that affects others. Hayek called this the spontaneous order, a system that organizes itself without anyone in charge. Just like nature, society evolves through countless small interactions, guided not by command but by adaptation. Prices in a market, for instance, aren't just numbers, they're signals. They carry information about scarcity, demand, and opportunity. They tell millions of people what to produce, where to invest, and how to innovate, all without anyone issuing orders. It's a living, breathing form of order born from chaos. To Hayek, this spontaneous order was the miracle of freedom. It's what allowed civilization to emerge, from language, to law, to trade. None of these things were invented by a single mind. They evolved organically through trial and error, through mistakes and learning. We owe our freedom, Hayek said, to the fact that the uses of knowledge are not subject to conscious control. In other words, freedom works precisely because it's messy. But modern societies hate mess. They want clean lines, perfect plans, and predictable outcomes. Hayek saw this impulse as deeply dangerous. He called it the fatal conceit, the arrogant belief that human reason is capable of designing complex systems better than evolution or spontaneous order. It's the conceit of the bureaucrat who thinks they can engineer the economy, the politician who believes they can make everyone equal through laws, the technocrat who trusts algorithms to manage human lives. Hayek saw this in socialism, fascism, and even in democratic governments when they try to plan too much. The more control society hands to experts, he argued, the less room there is for individual choice, and with that, the less room there is for discovery, creativity, and progress. Hayek didn't romanticize chaos as disorder. He understood that freedom needs a framework, a rule of law, private property, and voluntary exchange. But within that framework, he believed individuals must be free to fail, adapt, and evolve. Without risk, there is no innovation. Without uncertainty, there is no progress. Central control tries to eliminate both and ends up strangling the very life it seeks to improve. He looked at the world and saw that knowledge is never centralized. The information needed to make wise decisions is fragmented across billions of people. A farmer knows the soil of his field. A builder knows the strength of his materials. A shopper knows what she values. These details, multiplied by millions, form an invisible network of wisdom. Hayek believed that markets, free markets, were humanity's best tool to process that knowledge. Prices were like neurons firing in a brain, each one carrying a signal about reality. When the state interferes with prices, it's like cutting the nerves of society's nervous system. The body still moves, but blindly. This insight made Hayek one of the most important defenders of free market economics. But his argument wasn't just economic, it was moral and philosophical. He believed that freedom is not a means to an end, it is the end itself. Even if freedom sometimes leads to inequality, confusion, or inefficiency, it's still better than a perfectly organized slavery. Freedom is messy, yes, but that mess is the price of dignity. The alternative is obedience dressed as order. In The Road to Serfdom, Hayek showed how every central plan demands force. To make a plan work, someone must ensure others follow it. And to enforce obedience, freedom must shrink. The planner, even if well-intentioned, becomes the dictator of outcomes. People become resources, inputs to be optimized. Hayek wrote during the rise of both communism and fascism, and he saw how both ideologies, though opposites in name, shared the same root, the worship of collective control. One promised equality, the other strength, but both ended in servitude. He warned that even in democracies, the danger persists. When people demand that the government solve every problem, control prices, guarantee incomes, dictate industries, they unknowingly invite a new kind of tyranny. It doesn't come with chains or prisons, it comes with bureaucracy, taxes, and endless rules. You don't lose your freedom overnight. You lose it regulation by regulation, policy by policy, until one day you realize that everything you do is permitted, not chosen. To Hayek, freedom depended on humility, the humility to admit that no one knows enough to plan the world. He believed that progress happens because people are allowed to experiment, to make mistakes, to find better ways on their own. Central planning kills this process because it assumes perfection before action. It believes that society can be designed like a machine. But humans aren't machines, they're unpredictable, creative, emotional. Trying to control them fully is like trying to cage the wind. Now think about our world today. Governments track economic data in real time. Corporations collect vast amounts of information on consumer behavior. Algorithms predict what you'll want before you do. In the name of efficiency and safety, society is becoming more centralized than ever, digitally, not politically. Yet the logic is the same: control the chaos, manage the outcomes, eliminate unpredictability. Hayek's warning feels prophetic here. Because the more predictable people become, the easier they are to govern. The more centralized data becomes, the more fragile the system grows. All it takes is one failure in the center, and everything collapses. Hayek believed that the strength of free societies lies in their decentralization. When individuals act freely, society becomes resilient. It adapts. It learns. No single failure destroys the whole. That's what makes freedom anti-fragile. It grows stronger through chaos. Control, by contrast, is brittle. It may appear stable, but it cannot handle surprise. In a way, Hayek's worldview was both scientific and spiritual. He saw society as an organism more than a machine, an organism that evolves naturally through interaction, not design. Just as language wasn't invented by a committee, neither were markets or morals. They grew from the bottom up, through the unpredictable flow of human life. Trying to centrally plan that flow was, to him, like trying to control evolution itself. He also knew that freedom can be frightening. It demands responsibility. It means you cannot blame the system for your failures or expect it to guarantee your success. That's why people so easily surrender their liberty for security. People prefer the illusion of order to the risk of freedom, Hayek might have said. And yet, history shows that those illusions always end in decay. A society that tries to eliminate risk ends up eliminating progress. To illustrate his ideas, Hayek often contrasted himself with John Maynard Keynes, the famous economist who believed in government intervention to stabilize markets. While Keynes wanted to manage the economy through spending and policy, Hayek warned that such control would distort the natural signals of prices and incentives. For Hayek, recessions and booms were not things to eliminate, they were feedback, the system's way of learning and adjusting. Trying to suppress them only made the system weaker. This clash wasn't just about economics, it was about faith in human knowledge. Keynes trusted the ability of reason to fix problems. Hayek trusted the power of freedom to discover solutions. One believed in design, the other in emergence. And Hayek's warning, again and again, was simple: when reason overreaches, liberty dies. He wasn't against all government. He believed the state had a role to maintain law, protect rights, and ensure fair play. But it must never direct outcomes. It must never decide who wins and who loses. Its duty is to maintain the game, not to play it. That distinction is subtle but vital. Because once the state starts choosing winners, freedom becomes privilege. Hayek's message can be unsettling in an age like ours, an age that idolizes planning, control, and data-driven perfection. We're told that algorithms know best, that automation will eliminate uncertainty, that experts can fix the chaos of human life. But Hayek would remind you that life's value comes precisely from what cannot be planned, the spontaneous encounters, the unpredictable breakthroughs, the personal decisions that no machine could ever make. In trying to make life efficient, we risk making it meaningless. He saw that freedom and chaos are not enemies, they are partners. Chaos is the space where new ideas are born, where individuals test boundaries, where innovation sparks. Without it, society stagnates. It's the difference between a living forest and a manicured garden. A forest looks messy, but it's alive, self-sustaining, and adaptive. A garden is beautiful, but it survives only as long as someone maintains it. Central control turns societies into gardens, freedom lets them become forests. In the end, Hayek's philosophy is a defense of human dignity. It's about trusting people to live their own lives, even if they fail. It's about accepting imperfection as the price of authenticity. And it's about recognizing that order, when it comes from below, is stronger than any order imposed from above. The world doesn't need a master plan, it needs individuals free enough to create their own. His ideas inspired generations of thinkers, economists, and politicians who saw the danger of creeping control. From the fall of the Soviet Union to the rise of free market reforms, Hayek's fingerprints can be seen wherever societies rediscovered the power of decentralization. But even he would caution against dogma. Freedom isn't a formula, it's a process, an ongoing negotiation between order and chaos. Too much control kills it, too much chaos weakens it. The art of civilization is to balance the two without losing the soul of either. So what does Hayek's warning mean for you? It means that freedom begins with humility. It means letting go of the illusion that anyone, government, expert, or algorithm can manage your life better than you can. It means trusting that the spontaneous order of human interaction, though imperfect, is wiser than any grand design. The age of central control promises safety, but it breeds dependence. It promises fairness, but it creates uniformity. It promises progress, but it stifles innovation. True progress, Hayek believed, can only arise from individuals taking risks, failing, learning, and trying again. It's not efficient, it's alive. Freedom, then, depends on chaos. Because only in the unpredictable flow of life can new truths emerge. Only in the disorder of freedom can people discover what works and what doesn't. Control may build systems, but chaos builds humanity. And that's why Hayek fought not just for economics, but for the human spirit itself. When you hear the call for more control, for governments to plan your choices, for systems to make life safer, for experts to decide what's best, remember Hayek's warning. Every step toward perfect order is a step away from freedom. Embrace the chaos. It's not your enemy, it's the heartbeat of liberty.